Yep, good. We will now reconvene the regular council meeting of Monday, December 16th. We are rising from closed session with a report that council directs staff to make public the report Parks and Facilities 2024-05 mold assessment results and required remediation for the Millbrook Arena, advising council on the results from a recent mold assessment conducted at the Millbrook Arena. That document in its totality will be added to the website and be accessible at the end of the meeting. All right. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Councilor Byrne, Deputy Mayor Huntley, all in favor? That is approved. Moving on, we have 8.1, which is a delegation from Ilmar Simonowskis. And I believe Kyle Bruce will also be joining him. So we need a motion from council just to add Mr. Bruce to the delegation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I just wanted to introduce myself, Ilmar Simonovskis. I'm the new Commissioner of Municipal Operations at the City of Peterborough and have been working with Kyle to bring this message to you with regards to the airport. Kyle will be doing the presentation and we're both here for any questions.
Great. And members of council, my name is Kyle Bruce, Manager of Airport Administration with the City of Peterborough. Thanks once again for having us here today for this delegation. And for the clerk, if you want to start with the first slide. We're here today just to provide a high-level update about some activities at the airport and just where we see things moving in the future. Touch basing on the Strategic Initiatives Committee governance review study that's ongoing, the update on the agreement between Cav Monaghan and the City of Peterborough concerning the airport, regional engagement session that's planned for the new year, as well as airport activities, risk mitigation strategies, and community engagement. Next slide, please. The Strategic Initiatives Committee is an advisory committee that provides recommendations to the City Council with a broad focus on strategic guidance, marketing, business development, and strategic initiatives. Currently, we've deferred the most recent meeting and we'll be revisiting early in the new year. We anticipate recommendations from our governance study to be brought forward. Information on a strategic business plan, which the airport is undertaking, as well as updates on growth and a branding strategy. Next slide. The governance review, just to provide a bit of detail and context for that, the focus of the study is to determine the most effective structure and rationale for the airport and for governance and decision-making at the airport, with as well as the incentives for partnership. So as we're aware, the City of Peterborough owns and is the deciding body for operations at the airport. The management and operations are contracted to Lumex Property Management. So this study started in late fall. Initial consultations have been completed with key stakeholders. We're anticipating the draft report to be available internally towards the end of January into February. Next steps as part of the study is working group sessions with some of our key stakeholders to kind of flesh out what those options are and what the next steps are for the study and recommendations to move forward. The agreement between City of Peterborough and Cav Monaghan. So there is an agreement in place that delegates site planning activities as well as firefighting services to the City of Peterborough. There was a request going over a year and a half ago that was made to the city to update it. There's been back and forth between staff. It is at the legal level now. We're anticipating this to be, it's under review. We anticipate it to be resolved in the first quarter of 2025. Some of the considerations related to site alteration processes and other parts for review, review plans, as well as updating the airport master plan to be referenced in the document itself. Next slide. Kind of in line with that, what's planned is a regional engagement session. So we've actually booked a meeting with Monaghan, City of Peterborough staff, and County of Peterborough for mid-January. And what the main focus is, it's towards building a foundation for ongoing collaboration and strategies to promote regional growth. Some of the key topics that we'll be discussing being that the airport is kind of a primary part of the region and area here as it relates to economic development and land use. We'll be looking at planning frameworks, community growth plans, an airport update, as well as the airport growth plans itself, land use alignment, future servicing options, as well as continued community engagement. With respect to airport activities and traffic at the airport, so the city is in process of negotiation with a new flight school at the airport. And what we're projecting is implementation of this school into 2026, potentially. Movements in terms of air traffic. Over the next number of years, we're going to see increase quite a bit from 50,000 to 90,000 based on kind of rough estimations. We're currently working through stakeholder engagements. There's been discussions at a staff level as well as different coordinations in terms of next steps. In terms of changes at the airport itself, the city is in consideration of extending a taxiway, the primary taxiway adjacent to the main runway 0927 to improve accessibility and movement to and from the runway, as well as NAV Canada is in the process of completing an aeronautical study to review air traffic services at the airport. These two pieces are seen as kind of key mitigations in terms of traffic movement and airspace in vicinity of the airport. Just to give a snapshot of the airport currently, it is home to over 20 businesses and 500 plus direct jobs employed at the airport, and contributes 90 million in GDP. So with the change that's proposed, we could see an additional 50 jobs on site and additional economic development. In terms of community engagement, we're right in the midst of things. A lot of pieces are moving at the same time. Alignment of land use is viewed as a priority, as well as re-implementation of the community noise and liaison group. Noise abatement procedures were implemented in 2018. Just to provide some kind of brief data, 2023, there's currently the noise complaints have stabilized at this point. And in terms of the next steps, we'll be coordinating with our regional partners and how to best move forward. And with that, I'd just like to open it up to questions, recognizing this is a very brief delegation, so I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for both of you for those comments, questions, members of council. Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, you mentioned your workshops you have planned, and you mentioned staff. Will council from any of those townships be invited? Will the public be invited to any of those workshops?
The initial workshop that's planned, it's at a staff level to start, just to identify the needs and requirements. I would believe at that point, a recommendation may go forward on the next best option to proceed. But at this point, it's at a staff level.
Other questions? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, when you talk about the traffic that you're expecting, this 50,000, does that include a landing and a takeoff, or what are we looking at for actual volume of planes? Because now that the flight schools are there, they do a lot of touch and goes, and now you're going to go to a second school I'm assuming Buttonville's almost done, closed, and that's why you're getting this next influx of stool.
That's fair. Buttonville did close this past year. We've also seen Downsview close as well. When you look at an aircraft movement, it's a takeoff or a landing. So when the airport is currently reporting 50,000 movements, that's takeoffs or landings.
Thank you for that, Kyle. Other questions? Again, Councilor Byrne?
If I could, please. So when you said the noise complaints have stabilized, or does that, are people tired of calling and getting nothing done, or are you actually able to address the problem and come to some kind of common?
I'll start certainly with land use being an airport. Not everyone's going to be happy. 95% of the complainants are from a few households, whereas the rest are periodic. There's a group that aren't satisfied, but we've seen the numbers and volumes dramatically decrease. Some people have moved, other people accept it, some people like the traffic. So it all depends on personalities and the individuals.
Councilor Nacho?
Thank you through you, Chair. Can you just, with the aeronautical study, how long does it take and when do you think that we'll get the results from that? Thanks.
Thanks. That's a great question. The study actually commenced last year, and we're actually anticipating the results to be released tomorrow afternoon. So it's good timing. Thanks.
Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Kyle, for the presentation. Just a couple questions. One, the agreement with the township has actually been, we've been discussing that for about almost 3 years. So just a clarification on 1.5 years. Again, we are hoping to resolve that in the first quarter, so thank you for that. The other part is if you are proposing the flight school and we're talking about that type of increase of flights from what we currently have, will be very important that that conversation goes to the public. So thank you. I did receive the invitation to attend the workshop last week, so thank you for that. But I think it's really important that that public process is looked into, because the last time when we did do when you got the current school that you have now, there was a lot of communication, not only from Autonomy South Monaghan as well as Cavan Monaghan. So I think it's really important that there is a public process that is considered to reach out and have conversation about that.
Thanks for that, Yvette. Absolutely. Seeing no other questions, we are looking for a mover and a seconder that we receive the presentation for information with regards to an update on the Peterborough Regional Airport. Moved by Councilor Natchoff, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you both, gentlemen. We'll be in touch and I'm sure we'll see you soon, but thank you for coming today. Next item on the agenda is 9.1, minutes of the regular meeting held December 2nd. Any issues with those minutes? If not, we'll entertain a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Moving right along, we are going to commence the report portion with Report Finance 2024-14 User Fees and Charges Update. Ms. Pope.
Thank you. Through the mayor to all of council, we have the 2025 user fees and charges bylaw update. This is an annual review that is done amongst the management team to determine if there are any user fees that we need to raise or adjust to match comparative municipalities. So the report itself outlines some of the changes that have occurred, including the attachments and the markings there too.
And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Pope, you've alluded to this in the report that there's a few of them that have been adjusted with regards to the planning because of new legislation. Is that correct?
That is correct. I know the planner can speak more in depth to it, but that is correct.
Questions, members of council? Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, I guess to planning then for the rate increases on those are close to almost 40% increases. Is it just a straight up increase to cover the cost of what it is to handle the zoning requests, or is it incorporating other planning fees into that and kind of simplifying it?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley, can you just clarify, are you asking specifically about the zoning compliance fee or just zoning bylaw amendment applications?
Through you, Chair, it's like the zoning request at $55 per, was previously 40. So it's, you got 35% or so increase. Zoning request and work orders, is now, that's 85, was 70. Like those are fair hikes. I'm just curious to whether that, were there other fees and charges in there that are now gone and are being represented in this single cost? Or is this a pure increase of this cost in order to cover the workload?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley, it is a pure increase. So zoning requests are traditionally filed by lawyers looking for specific zoning information. Sometimes they ask for some additional clarification. What we're finding, we haven't raised the fees in probably more than 5 years. The clerk's department was very helpful in doing a scan of area municipalities in terms of their fees. So we've cornered ourselves to be in the ballpark with others as well. And I can tell you in the planning department, we are finding that requests for information, planning applications, et cetera, are getting more and more complicated and taking more and more time. So we felt that these fees were a reflection of the effort of planning department staff.
Through you, Chair. And what sort of volumes do these represent? The zoning requests, the zoning request and work orders?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley, zoning requests, I can tell you they're a lot less than they used to be since the implementation of title insurance. We don't get as many, but we probably get maybe 25 a year, maybe.
Thanks, Ms. Ellis. Other questions? Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair, and I'm not sure, because this is mostly monies, but on the topic of, so I noticed there's a charge for a permit for a solar panel on a roof. I don't know if you put one in your backyard, you get one charged too. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the reasoning behind that permit fee was. We seem to be having permits on almost everything now. There's an increase on even culverts, but I don't even know what the township does differently now than 10 years ago. If a person applies for a new road access and needs to put a culvert in, it's usually the owner's cost. I don't know what's gone up on the township side.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Byrne, just on your first question there, your question was related to the building permit required for solar panels on roofs. And I think that's a fee that's been in place there. It's a structural thing on, and it's a fire hazard, so both have to be checked when applied for. And I'm not the chief building official, but that's generally the requirement of most municipalities. On the issue of entrance culverts, there was an increase in the bylaw, which is reflective of staff time to just really accommodate the entrance. The entrance is usually put in by a contractor for the landowner, but we have to look after location, we have to approve the drawing, and we have to inspect the culvert after it's in place. There is part of that fee that's released back to them after the culvert is installed properly. So they do get 50% of the fee back.
Thanks, Mr. Hancock. Other questions? If not, there is the recommendation that council approves the bylaw number 2024-68 being a bylaw to impose and consolidate user fees and charges coming to effect January 1st, 2025. That's the motion under consideration. We'll take a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Next is 10.2 is the report township pre-consultation bylaw. Ms. Ellis?
Mayor Graham, members of council, planning report 2024-57 is before you today with 3 recommendations. The firstly being that report PEB 2024-57 be received for information. Secondly, that bylaw number 2023-37 being our current pre-consultation bylaw be repealed in its entirety. And thirdly, that bylaw number 2024-67, a pre-consultation bylaw, be approved. This revision in the pre-consultation bylaw is before you today because it reflects recent changes in provincial legislation. Pre-consultation under the Planning Act can no longer be mandatory. We do continue to encourage it and we offer it as a service, but it cannot be mandatory. So we are changing the pre-consultation bylaw to reflect provincial requirements. A housekeeping official plan amendment will be coming to you early in the new year to reflect that in our official plan policy as well. The fees for pre-consultation, if it's a minor application, which is a minor variance, a rezoning subject of a subdivision or severance, that's all free. Anything that's not minor is major. There is a $500 charge for that. But again, it is not mandatory. We do encourage it, but it's not mandatory. If people do want information but don't want a formal pre-consultation, staff still offer that service for free. So having said that, I present to you the recommendations.
Okay, so making the existing bylaw current by replacing it completely with the new bylaw with that is consistent with the new legislation, okay? Fairly straightforward question, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, not to me, I'm trying to figure out the difference between the pre-application and the pre-consultation. Yeah, and I realized that the idea was that you were going to have to return monies if the wasn't done on time for the consultation. When somebody volunteers to hire you to do the pre-consultation, do those same limits exist, or that's because it's voluntary, you can take as long as you want to get back to them, or how's that work?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. So you've actually got two different pieces of the pie going. So the pre-application format was put in place when the provincial government changed the legislation to tell us that we had to refund money if we didn't have a decision on site plan approval applications within a certain time frame, with official plan amendment applications, et cetera. That provincial legislation has now been changed as well. So there is no longer a requirement for a pre-application process. So the township with the bylaw before you today and the fee bylaw that you've just approved, we're going back to how we did business before. And how we do business is we encourage people to do pre-consultation. We provide them information. They submit an application. We check it to make sure it's complete and we process it. And I can assure you that we are processing these applications as efficiently as we can. So that's the pre-application process. The pre-consultation process is now optional. So if you choose not to do a pre-consultation process, you can still get input from township staff. You can go out to the county, Orca, Ministry of Transportation, and you can do all that homework yourself and still provide a complete application. If you choose to pay the $500, do pre-consultation, we will ensure that Ministry of Transportation staff, Orca staff, First Nations, Enbridge, Hydro, whomever needs to be at the table, we will invite them. We do the meeting to give them a full slate of what's required to make a complete application, and we provide a set of meeting minutes that they then have a template and a list of information that is required to make their application complete.
Through the chair, so it's voluntary for the consultation, but they can still be asked to do more than one consultation, if I read this right. And I don't know, I'm guessing yous make the decision whether it's minor or major. And yous make the decision whether they need more than one consultation, is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. So the pre-consultation is optional. Generally, we do one pre-consultation unless the applicant requests an additional pre-consultation. So with the pre-consultation process, as I say, we invite all the players we think have an interest in an application to the table to get the requirements laid out up front. If there are questions about those requirements, certainly we would make every effort to host another meeting to clarify any questions or requests for additional information. The determining what is major and minor was defined in the pre-consultation bylaw. So it is still in the bylaw and it's been added to the fee bylaw. So you only have to go, you don't have to go back and forth between bylaws. So minor applications are minor variances, zoning bylaw amendments that are the result of a severance application or a plan of subdivision, relatively minor applications.
Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, it sounds like, I mean, opting out of that pre-consultation could result in a lot of frustration down the road if they don't properly consult with all the parties that they're required to, because you're just going to send them back to continuously get the information they need to actually complete the application. So I mean, so unless you're very experienced with all of the interested parties, I mean, it sounds like it could really cause a lot of delays and frustrations trying to relocate or trying to get all that stuff. So I don't understand the legislation coming down the way it's come down. So just my own 2 cents and my comment to it.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense to get a full story of what is going to be required for your development, rather than having to go independently and seek that out at each of the, or just assume, or might be missed certain agencies that have a legislative requirement to be consulted, for sure. Any other questions, Councillor Byrne?
Through the chair, just so I understand it more, I thought most of this stuff was for subdivision based, it's for everything right across the boards, but there would be lots of players at the table that are seasoned.
Yeah, the pre-con really allows staff to facilitate all of the various parties involved in any sort of application. Some applications might require more or fewer, but they facilitate based on what the information they receive about the pre-con and ahead of time to get the right players at the table to give you what you're going to need from each of them, rather than guessing and assuming, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a bit of the clarity that you get from that. So thanks for that, Ms. Ellis. Oh, and you'd like to clarify something I probably mistakenly said?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne, just to clarify, so the pre-consultation, we always have an idea of what the application is about before we schedule the meeting. So we do know who to invite. We do ask them to submit some kind of plan or some kind of detail about what they're proposing, and then we go from there. And you're quite right. So pre-consultation is often done for plans of subdivision because of the complexities involved in that. And we are finding today that professional planning consultants on major applications will always do pre-consultation. We do offer informal meetings, as I've said, free of charge. So we have had someone who's interested in an expansion of a hamlet boundary and a plan of subdivision. We have met with them a couple of times to discuss the intricacies of provincial policy, what our own official plan says, what the county's new official plan may say. So the dialogue is constantly ongoing, but I can tell you that with all the changes in the provincial planning framework, things have gotten much more complicated. So it's important to keep chatting with our friends in the other agencies so that we're all on the same page.
Follow up?
Through the chair, that sparked an interest I didn't realize I was going to ask, but for a hamlet expansion of any dimension or any direction, can any one person make that application and move forward with it, or does it have to be anything broader than that?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. As of October 20th, anybody can make an application. Prior to October 20th, it had to be done for the most part through a municipal comprehensive review, but today the door is open. Anybody can make an application with supporting documentation to justify how that meets the criteria in the new PPS.
Follow up?
Yes, through the chair, I'll follow up on that. So how that procedure laid out somewhere on our webpage, the documentation and all the procedures you need to do, or again, you'd come in and ask staff to?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne, there is nothing on the township website that outlines how you would do that, because that will be an official plan amendment application. And so that we would generally suggest that they do pre-consultation, and we would invite Peterborough County because it does involve them as the approval authority for official plan amendments, and hamlet expansion generally involve a plan of subdivision. Again, Peterborough County is the approval authority for that. Again, the Conservation Authority, depending on the location of the property, Ministry of Transportation. Recently, Hydro Gas are interested in participating. First Nations are quite often identified as having an interest in the site. So even though anybody can make the application, there is a standard set of justification, and then there will be additional justification depending on the location and characteristics of the particular property.
Okay, So the three recommendations to accomplish what we're attempting to is that one being that we receive the report for information, two, that the bylaw number 2023-37 be repealed in its entirety, and three, that bylaw number 2024-67 be approved. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those three recommendations? Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Moving on, next is Public Works, Kennedy Drive subdivision assumption. Mr. Hutchison presenting today.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Through you to council. Before you, we have Public Works Report 2024-25 with a recommendation regarding the Kennedy Drive subdivision assumption. The recommendation before you is as follows. That council approved bylaw number 2024-69, being a bylaw to assume and dedicate Kennedy Drive as shown on plan 45M-249 as a public highway. This is the extension of Kennedy Drive. The development started in 2017, and they have completed the final stages of the subdivision, and they have satisfied everything within the subdivision agreement. So township staff are confident that everything is in place to assume the subdivision and take over the municipal services and operations of that subdivision.
Thanks for that, Drew, and congratulations to the proponent for fulfilling all the obligations and satisfying all of the planning matters. Any questions with regards to the assumption of the subdivision? Councillor Byrne.
Through the chair to Drew, the blocks 13, 14, and 15, a couple of them are still for sale. The bigger block across the bottom of the valley, are there any plans for that down the road from this development? And I'm not sure who owns the property straight to the east of that block.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. Block 13 and 14 are outside of the subdivision, so they still are owned by the developer. Block 15, Miss Ellis might be able to confirm, but it is green space. And I can refer to her for further clarification. And then the property to the east, like you mentioned, it is there is a development there as well, the Mount Pleasant Estates development that is still underway.
Thanks, Drew. Other questions? Oh, Ms. Ellis, you're going to follow up. Sorry about that.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. So block 15, which abuts the Cabin Bog, is an environmental restricted area. So there will be no development in that area. It's not considered parkland. It is an environmental buffer to the provincially significant Cabin Bog.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Seeing no other questions. Oh, Councillor Burns, sorry.
Separate from that, through the chair to Drew, I'm assuming we were already taking care of cleaning the road of snow because the trucks have to go up there to turn around and come back down to do the other little chunk of road. So that's not going to be any additional dilemma for anybody.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. There was an agreement the last few years between the developer and the township to do the snow plowing in the winter. So we will continue operations as we typically would in that area. But through the agreement, they were paying us to do that work, but now we will be assuming it, and it will be to the township cost. Yes, correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Going once. All right. That council approved bylaw number 2024-69 being a bylaw to assume and dedicate Kennedy Drive as shown on plans 45M-249 as a public highway. Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thanks, Drew and Karen, for those comments. Drew, you're still up. Recommended updates to the municipal addressing bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. Through you to council. Before you, we have Public Works Report 2024-26 with recommendations regarding updates to the municipal addressing bylaw. The recommendation before you is that council adopt bylaw number 2024-70, being a bylaw to regulate municipal addressing for buildings and lots along public roadways in the township of Cavamonaghan. The current municipal addressing bylaw is bylaw number 99-86. So it is a little out of date to our standard practice. So we've brought forward this bylaw with updates to include a more in-depth outline for the addressing process that we follow. And it also establishes an addressing system for properties with multiple units, including residential dwellings and commercial or industrial developments. Thanks.
Thanks, Drew. Questions, members of council, with regards to the addressing bylaw? Deputy Mayor Huntley and then Councilor.
Thank you, Chair. Just one clarification. I kind of read this a couple times and I'm still can't quite wrap my head around it. Maybe you can help me with this one. And it was under the multiple attached dwellings. It talks about the numbering, and it says a unit number is skipped if such unit number would be repeated or would repeat the property identification. Does that mean if I was like, if my address was like 12 and I had 13 different units on the building, the 12th unit wouldn't be 12, it would be 13, and then you'd have 14? Is that how I interpret it? Why?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley. It's a standard practice throughout when we were reviewing bylaws in other municipalities. It was a standard practice that they do. I believe it's for emergency services and postal services, so that there isn't a confusion and duplicating numbers by accident, so that there just isn't any, like, for example, like you said, if there's 13 units and it's, say it's Union Street 12 and there's 13 units in there, there wouldn't be a mix up where someone accidentally puts the same number twice. And then there's no confusion on their end. So it was standard practice from our research. So we included that in the bylaw.
Through the chair, to Drew, just thinking ahead to the property over on the 8th line, Sire line that we're trying to make a condominium. Some of those will have road access onto Sire line. Some of them will have a road at some point, the planning was. The addressing for that is going to work out how if they get tied in with a different roadway.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Byrne. First of all, the lots that are fronting on Sire line will have a Sire line address. The private roadway, which is referred to as a condo roadway, will have a street name, and there will be numbering system off of that roadway. So they will be identified by the private condo road, and it will carry its own name.
Follow up?
Actually, a different question altogether. For the signage, there was talk a while back. I think they were talking blue signs for vacant farmland, that it would have some kind of a 911 referencing. So that if somebody was out working in a field, they could actually get some help there. That was not carried on with. I just wondered, in this new bylaw situation, is any of that given consideration?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Councillor Byrne. I have heard previous discussions between Chief Belfer and Mr. Hancock about a different color for 911 signs for farm properties. And I know different municipalities have a different process that they follow, but through our discussions, we have decided to still use the typical green signs that we would use for all lots. And it is available. We do encourage people with vacant land or farm entrances to use the 911 number. I believe it was a part of the Emily project in Port Hope. So it is available and we just use the typical sign and follow the standard practice.
Councillor Byrne?
Through the chair. Yeah, so at that point, it's still vacant land. You haven't applied or got severance or permission to build anything on it, but you'd still be considered a 911 number with the same flagging. It just, okay, fair enough. And the cost is the same.
Chief, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Through the mayor, to Councillor Burns, I think Drew did an excellent job of explaining that. The only thing I would add today is I do see those different projects out in different municipalities, and through discussions with our team here, it's just duplication. So we have one system that's working quite well. And so we're just carrying that one on to ensure that there's continuity and there's no mix-ups.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions with regards to this report? If not, we have a recommendation that council adopt bylaw number 2024-70, being a bylaw to regulate municipal addressing for buildings and lots along public roadways in the township of Cavan Monaghan. Looking for a mover and a seconder for that report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thanks everyone for those comments. Next report, 10.5, is report fire 2024-03 training officer, Chief Belfour.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The report before Council today is Fire Department Report number 2024-03. There's two recommendations. The first one is for the hiring of a full-time training officer, and the second one is for the adjustments to the 2025 operating budget. The report goes through, it talks about the Fire Department's master fire plan. It talks about the Ontario regulation requiring all firefighters to be certified now in Ontario. It talks about the reports that were brought forward and the concerns raised with that regulation, hence the attachment number 1 with the letter that council sent to the Ontario government regarding that regulation. It talks about the different challenges within the fire department currently with the workload in all the different divisions. As well, it talks about the CAO and myself, the fire chief, exploring the possibility of establishing a joint position with other municipalities within Peterborough County. And lastly, it talks about our establishing regulating bylaw that sets out our level of service and in all our different divisions. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Chief. So can you maybe just clarify, just in the report, sort of the role of this full-time position and how is it managing the various certification requirements for the entirety of our complement of fire service employees, or like how, just can you maybe just provide a bit of more like generic clarity as to sort of the functioning of this position and how it can alleviate some of the existing time constraints on the existing staff we have?
The training officer, there's an attachment number 2 would be it'd be their role and responsibility to ensure that these training lesson plans, scheduling for the different variation courses, entering when the training course is done, there's logging that information, ensuring compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, ensuring that our records are kept up to date and current.
And is there, with the requirement for all of the certification, I'm assuming we never got a response to the letter that we submitted in 2022, or does anyone on staff, did we receive any sort of feedback about that? I mean, because I know it's come up in other municipal leader discussions about, you know, the certification and the burden that's creating for those more rural communities with a volunteer-based fire service. Did we receive a response that you're aware of, or any sort of addressing? No? No. Okay, well, that answers that. Okay, other questions, members of council? Sorry. Councillor Edgerton.
You, Mr. Mayor, to the fire chief. That's right. You, Mr. Mayor, to the fire chief. I think we have quite a few staff already hired in your position over there. Can none of them do any of this year training, or is this training all got to be done in-house, or does some of it be done down in Norwood too?
Through the mayor to Councillor Edgerton, The report does talk about different divisions that each one of those staff members is legislatively required to look after. So when you balance out the different, you've got 8 different divisions within the department, and the training division is one of those 8, which is a significant one, but each of the other ones, when you take away from one other division, you're taking away time out of there, and it has to be applied to the training. There isn't 2 staff members that can take a part of that and cover off all those positions. So hence the report today to ensure that we're meeting the requirements in the other divisions aren't faltering, that we have the adequate staff that are able to carry out as identified in attachment number 2, the different training courses that are now mandated through this regulation.
Follow up?
To you, Mr. Mayor, to the fire chief. I think that we got to look at what it's costing us for our fire department and staff that we have around just to run it. So therefore, I think we should be able to incorporate the training maybe and with some of the staff that we already have on full time.
Chief, could you speak to that sort of suggestion about how potentially it could be facilitated by existing staff or what barriers that would provide and I have another follow-up question afterwards, but I'll park it there for now.
Through the mayor to Councillor Edgerton, I appreciate the question. The reason for the report today is the position of the training officer has been vacated for almost a year now. And the workload and the gaps that are being seen in the other different divisions are such that the report is here today for council to ensure that we're meeting those mandated, legislatively required things that they're also outlined in the level of service that council has chosen for the municipality to ensure that those things are being met. If you're going to spread or take away the time from the current staff to do the training, there are other divisions within the department that then will be lacking.
So on that note, Chief, is there a timeline or horizon by which sort of because that was a part of I believe, the advocacy letter that was sent in 2022. Is there a horizon or a deadline by which the training thresholds? I'm sure there's many, so I'm sure it's not one specific question, but you know, with the lag, with not having a facilitator to coordinate this training and organize it and, you know, also document it and do all the background admin. Is there a horizon where that might impact the amount of, you know, existing people that are on our fire service that, you know, if they don't have certain certifications by a certain time that, like, you know, we've already had, it sounds like a year, not to say that no training is ongoing, but no one's sort of doing an audit of everyone's current capacity or current certifications, et cetera. And but did we get a horizon with this new legislation or with these new requirements, or is it kind of, we're still working our way through it, or is there a deadline that might impact the number of volunteers that we do have currently in the fire service?
To the mayor's question, the regulation did have a timeline horizon. The problem with that timeline horizon is once it came into law, you're really obligated to meet it. So while that horizon is coming forward, the bigger question is and the report, you know, speaks to it, maybe not in depth. The bigger question that is left with this regulation is when you look down at attachment 2 here and the number of hours for the training, the various different components within that regulation is the staff time for the learners themselves, i.e. our volunteer firefighters. And how sustainable is that for how long? What horizon is that for them to be able to complete this when they're working full-time jobs? So some part of this position is also helping assist them. And some people may, you know, think that the volunteers can do it, but when you have some, not most of them are working a full-time career on top of this position is assisting them, not doing their work, but getting them the necessary tools for success to achieve this regulation that's now born upon us.
Thanks, Chief. Questions? Other members of council? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair to the chief, am I safe to expect there's lots of communities in Ontario when this same regulation is applied across the whole province, that they don't have near the resources that we do, even though we have way less than, say, bigger cities have. And it must impact them similarly.
Through the mayor to Councillor Byrne, excellent question, and that is correct. There has been, the mayor asked previously if there had been a response back to the letter, and no, there hasn't been a response back to the letter. However, there has been some strides with provincial funding where the government has announced a portion of funding, which we're, happy to see that. But that funding that we're getting is spread out over 400 and some municipalities. And for our particular municipality, it's a small portion of the annual budget. And so what I would say to this regulation is, and the letter that was sent by the previous council, is that advocacy for funding for the fire service really needs to be taken on by council. So I know that when you're meeting with ministers that you've got a shortened allotment of time, if you could take a small portion of that and advocate for funding for the fire service, because you're seeing it here today, the costs of, and it's going to continue to grow. And as we grow and develop, those costs are only going to get more significant.
Chief, do you know offhand as well? I know like we've had conversations and it seems like unfortunately there hasn't been the ability to share this sort of resource or this position with other neighboring municipalities, but use like any, maybe locally, has this position been, fulfilled in other local municipalities yet? Or is that why they weren't interested in participating? Or can you just provide maybe a local context to see like how other municipalities are either accommodating or, trying to facilitate this legislative requirement adherence?
I believe if through the mayor to answer your question, my recollection, there are a couple of municipalities in Peterborough County that have hired full-time training officers just for this very reason. And that's possibly why they weren't open to participating with us. I think as you see the region grow, and maybe those municipalities aren't seeing the same call volumes and growth that we're seeing here, but eventually you'll probably more than likely see the same sort of report going to their local municipality.
Thanks, Chief. Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair to the chief, that was a nice segue into my next question. You talk about a 3% increase in the last while for calls. Could you break them down for me? Like how much is medical, how much is fire, how much is highway response to accidents?
Through the mayor to Councillor Burns. So I'm going to talk, in approximates, but medical calls make up approximately 60%, right? Another 30% is our MVCs or motor vehicle collisions, and then the others are rescues and fires.
Well,
through the chair, no, separate question. I look in here also, if I remember right, the last time we heard about this, you were approximately 60 something volunteers. Looks like you're up to 80. I'm hoping they're all new ones, or do you see a reduction in some of the long-term ones? And we've had so many new ones come in that you're now up to the 80 threshold?
Through the mayor to Councillor Burns, the report does speak to that. So there is generally in the fire service, it's not a problem that's, unique to Cavan Monaghan. Volunteers have a lifespan of an average of about approximately 5 years. So when you look at this regulation and the number of years it takes to get them up to a level where they're fully certified, you're looking at approximately 3 years. So you have them for 2. So there's that turnover. So we have the constant turnover. And previous question, I'm jumping back to your previous question about the 3% call volumes. That 3% is an average. So some years a little more, some are little things, and that's been a sustainable, that's tracking with your growth. Okay. So I hope that answers the question.
thanks, Chief. Other questions? Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair to the chief, on that last note you made, as it tracks over the last 10 or 15 years of your experience, do you see the proportion, the 60%, the 30%, and the other 10% roughly staying close to each other?
Through the mayor to Councillor Burns, in respect to the call volume or the types of calls, That's correct. It goes up and down, fluctuates, but on average, they're roughly sustainable there.
Okay, so there are two recommendations in the report. The first being the council approve the hiring of a full-time training officer to ensure compliance with Ontario Regulation 343-22, and that the adjustments to the fire department's 2025 budgeting or operating budget be made to accommodate the position for the second budget presentation in January. We've got a request for a recorded vote. So clerk, I'll pass it over to you for that.
We're in a seconder and then we'll call the vote.
So we need a mover and a seconder for those recommendations before the vote. Councillor Natchoff, Deputy Mayor Huntley, all okay, and then the recorded vote.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. First, we'll call Councillor Edgerton,
No.
Councillor Natchoff,
Yes.
Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne,
No.
and Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is approved. Thank you, council. Good discussion. Thank you, chief. 10.6 is the report CAO and the CAO report and capital status. Questions or anything to mention, Ms. Hurley? Councillor Natchoff? Sorry, you did ask me to pause, so I want to give you the opportunity to speak to it. My motion? Yeah, thank you. Right here.
Sorry, thank you through you, Chair. I would like to put forward a motion that the staff investigate the potential for the lands around the existing station number 1 in Millbrook to be used for additional downtown parking once the facility is no longer in use by the fiber service and report back to council. Thank you.
Okay, that's a request to add that to the CAO capital report. Any questions about that utilization before? Question, Councillor Byrne, for clarification?
Through the chair to the CEO. I brought up a while back, and I don't know if it even stays on, whatever, but we talked, or at least I mentioned, the possibility for the mental health motorhome, for lack of a better expression, maybe making utilization of that facility in the wintertime, because that facility that travels on wheels, as far as I know, is still working. I haven't seen it down here at the new hockey rink in a while, but I don't know. Needed a place to park that it could keep the water from freezing. Didn't have to be kept warm, just had to be kept above. So if we're talking about that discussion about what the next step for that facility might be, I just wondered if it could stay on the books.
So like, we just have to deal with one thing at a time here. So questions with regards to utilizing the outdoor space, that the motion is just for that purpose, and then we can get into that one, because it's not utilizing the building at all, it's just the lands around it, was what I believe the intention of the motion was. So I think we all understand that, and it's just getting added on to this report and come back to council at a future date. No issues, so that's the motion. So I'm assuming it's moved by Councillor Natchoff. Do we have a seconder for that consideration to be added to the report? Oh, we don't need a motion for capital? I think we do.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to the CAO, I believe for clarification, we probably want, if it's an additional item added here, a motion just for clarification.
Okay, so we have a mover, Councillor Natchoff, seconder, Deputy Mayor Huntley, all in favor? That's approved. So in regards to Councillor Byrne's request about the, we don't have there's no motion on the books for that. Do you want to add one? Because I'm not sure which, I've seen the unit that you're talking about, but we haven't had any requests for accommodations as far that I've been made aware of yet, or any emails. So unless there's a request for us to try to facilitate the space for it, I don't believe we've been asked. Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Byrne, are you looking, do you want to report back, or what were you looking for? Just a little bit more detail, if I may, sir.
So through the chair, no, I just brought it up at an earlier meeting. I can't remember a long time ago. When I first found out about the 2 mobile facilities, and I went to speak to the people that looked after it and supported it and got the money to do it. They expressed to me the issue in the winter months. They have to drain everything and not be able to fully utilize it if they haven't got a place to park it that won't freeze. And because the service vehicle that handles Cabin, Monaghan, and farther south, this was kind of a nice spot as far as the service area. So I only brought it up back then. I don't know how it moves forward, but it was just a suggestion that that space would be ideal for what they were doing and without very much alterations or cost.
So Ms. Hurley, are you aware of the specific unit that Councilor Burns is talking about? And I haven't been, usually we get circulated on requests for accommodations like that. I haven't seen anything. So I just wanted to speak with you so we can proactively reach out to see if there is interest about, or if there's plans to deploy it in community. I'm not aware of any.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of anything at this time, but I do believe Councillor Byrne did mention it because he spoke to them directly, I think, at that time. If you would like a motion for us to reach out to them and see if get the details and maybe report back to council, I'm happy to do that.
Can you provide any of the contacts and stuff like that for Ms. Hurley so that she has and just knows that we're all on the same page? That's fine. So do you want to make that motion, Councillor Byrne? Sorry, he wants to speak to it.
Through the chair, and it may well have been addressed already. I have no way of knowing. I haven't been in contact with them. But yes, if we could reach out to them, and it'd be the mental health and wellness. It's the Blue Motor Home that they park right next door here. Used to be twice a month. I don't know what happens now, what their schedule is. It just seemed at the time when I was talking to them, the effort that they'd put into it, the monies that have been fundraised for it, it would be nice to make the best use of it. That's all. So I'll make a motion that we get a report on whether it's still required and if we could accommodate it.
Seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Okay, very good. Any other additions or any other comments on any of the contents, Ms. Hurley? No? Seeing none? Okay. If not, can we receive, we have already approved those motions, so we're just receiving the remainder of the report for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Council committee verbal reports. Any verbal reports from members of council? Councillor Byrne?
Through the chair, I just want to say I thought the parade came off really nicely, and we're going to talk, I think, to who won the Best Float Award, and wanted to thank the volunteer fire department and all the supports for the banquet the other Saturday night. Thank you.
Other members of council? Seeing none? Yeah, I'll speak to that. I did get an email. I'm just going to pull it up. So I make sure I get the sequence of those being recognized correct. But if I am not mistaken, Jessica, I'm just pulling up your email. So yes, with regards to the floats, because everyone really wants to know, congratulations to first place prize went to Autonomy Massage and Wellness. They really put in a tremendous effort every year. So congratulations on, I believe, their first win. Second prize for the float was to the Friendship Force. So congratulations to those folks as well. And third place was Eagleson Construction, who had definitely one of the biggest floats we've seen to date. So congratulations to all of those three being recognized. And yes, again, thank you to Jessica and the remainder other members of staff that all facilitated that. The parade is really, of all the things that we try and aren't necessarily uptake, but the parade seems to be a constant that gets better and bigger every year. So congratulations to everyone involved on a great event. And thanks again to the Legion for hosting and participating in that event. And thanks to staff that hosted the after party, I'm going to refer to it as, at the CMCC for all the kids and the activities. I heard that was very well attended as well. So excellent work. And again, Chief, thanks for the accommodations and inviting both myself, Councillor Natchoff, and Councillor Byrne attended the Firefighter Awards banquet on Saturday night. Great to see and recognize some very long-standing commitments to the fire service, and also recognize some of the training certifications for a lot of the new recruits that are certainly getting and looking younger every year. So congratulations to all of them. With those and seeing no other verbal reports, can we get a motion to receive those for information? Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. General business. There is no general business. Correspondence for information. There is an update that I can speak to, having served on the health unit for the last term of council and this term. So we finally did receive notification early in December that the merger between the HKPR and the PPH, Peterborough Public Health merger, has been approved by the province. So that process will take probably the better part of 2 years to really integrate and fully integrate. And there's a lot of decisions that will need to be made by that new board, because the final meeting for the Peterborough Public Health Board was on Wednesday of last week. And that marked 135 years of public health service provided in the community. So that history is a longstanding legacy. Peterborough Public Health is one of the earlier established health units in the province. So it's a very, vibrant history that will be a part of the contribution to the new health unit that will serve our community and the other communities in the new larger region. So there's still a lot to be done and decided by that new board, including who will be seated at it, but we wish the new entity well as it continues to provide those vital services to the community. So that's just really for information, just that the merger was approved and that the work will start in January to figure out the new structure. Anyways, that's just my update for information. It's pertinent, and again, we just want to wish them all well because it's no small feat. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councilor Burns, second by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. There is no correspondence for action. We are now at the bylaws. Bylaw number 2024-67 being a bylaw to encourage development proponents to consult with the Township of Catamonigan prior to submission of a complete application titled pre-consultation bylaw, and that bylaw number 2024-68 being a bylaw to impose and consolidate user fees and charges, and that bylaw number 2024-69 being a bylaw to assume and dedicate Kennedy Drive as a public highway, and that bylaw number 2024-70 being a bylaw to regulate municipal addressing for the buildings, lots along any highway in the Township of Catamonigan be read a first, second, and third time and passed the 16th day of December, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Can I get a mover for those bylaws? Moved by Councilor Burns, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. There is no unfinished business. Any notices of motion? Seeing none. The confirming bylaw number 2024-71, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held December 16, 2024, be read a first, second, and third time and passed the 16th day of December, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Councilor Natchoff, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Lastly, a motion to adjourn this final meeting of 2024. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. There's a number of upcoming meetings. The Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting has a special meeting this, I believe it's this Friday at 9 a.m. The next special council meeting is the budget meeting Thursday, January 9th at 1 p.m. And the next special council budget meeting with the public portion is at 5 p.m. also on January 9th. The Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee will also meet on Thursday, January 16th. And our next regular council meeting will be scheduled for Monday, January 27th at 1 p.m. Milford Valley Trails Advisory Committee will meet just January 27th at 4 p.m. And the subsequent regular council meeting will be Monday, February 3rd at 1 p.m. We want to wish everyone in the township a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and all the best in the new year. And we will see you then. Take care.